now we're talking about grief, yeah, as our brother said. Last week I was at City Life and talking to the motherhood group. So that was a good session with all the mothers. Now, I have just come back. I had to do an unplanned visit to Kerala. You probably see the photographs of it later on about where my mother was born. But I had to go back to India because my mother, who is 96, had a stroke. And so I went. She's a very resilient woman. Even at 96, she goes to the kitchen to do the cooking. But she had a stroke, so I had to go and got her out of hospital. She's at home and recovering very well because she's got a strong faith and also very strong will. Wow. That's what keeps her going. Now, so today's topic is about grief. And as Pastor said, we all go through periods of grief, and as we're getting older, there are more chances of us going through these phases. But grief is not only when we lose someone, we look into that. So that's what we're going to have a look at for the next few minutes. So let's start. So what is grief? As usual, when I give a talk, I like, being a medical person, we like to look at what it is, the definition. So start with what is grief? So Pastor mentioned something about grief. Anybody else? What is grief?
Sadness.
Sadness. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? Feeling sad. Luckily, the emotion. What else? Any other thoughts?
Regret.
Regret. Yeah. You can have regrets of things that you have not done. Anything else?
Sorrow.
Sorrow. Yeah. Good. Yes. So we have lots of different emotions that come. So, but the first thing that we need to realize is grief is a natural response to loss. Yeah, it is natural for us human beings to feel that way. Remember that. It's a natural response. And emotional suffering, when it is emotional suffering, when something or someone you love is taken away. It's not only someone, but something as well. That's what I was saying. It's not really a person. It could be something is taken away from us. And it's difficult and unexpected emotions that we begin to feel. Can you see from there? Yeah? Okay. And it's often results in shock, anger, disbelief, guilt, sadness, all these emotions. And feel free, like whenever I come here, to stop me, okay? Anytime you ask a question or pass a comment, please feel free to do that. It's I'm happy for you to do that, and that's the way we learn. And when we have grief, it can disrupt not only our emotional health, it can also disrupt our physical health, mental health, and our spiritual health. Is that right? Yeah, it can. And it's more significant, the loss, the more intensive the grief, the intense the grief. And grief is natural to every person as breathing. We all breathe, like we've done the exercises today. I hope none of you are so tired you're going to start sleeping now. Yeah? And then we do, even if you miss my talk, remember about the Indian meal after this, on banana leaf. I must tell you, when I was in India last week, that was the time in Kerala state, there was special celebration, harvest festival called Onam, right? And Onam meals are usually on banana leaves, right, that they have. So they're going to have actually an Onam celebration today. Yeah, right. Now, however, our responses can be tempered. This is important, even when we were talking about stress. Lot of our emotions are tempered by our character, our personality, our learnings, and our faith. All that can make a difference in the way we feel and express our grief. Are you with me? Yeah? Personality is very important, but at the same time, we are all different human beings, are we not? Every one of us. That's the way God has created us. It's such a beautiful thing. The way God has created us. No two human beings are the same. Are you with me?
Yes.
I think I've shared this before. I've got a set of twins. We've got 4 children, and the last 2 were twins. Well, at one time, we had 4 children under the age of 4. You ask my wife how she survived, right? 4 children under the age of 4. And the last 2 are twins. And one was 3 pounds when she was born, the other one was 6 pounds. And they are like chalk and cheese. Absolutely different. They are the same parents, brought up in the same environment, went to the same schools. Absolutely different. The little one, the one who was 3 pounds, she is a fighter. Oh, she'll come into your face, she'll believe something and she'll bawl at you. The other one is a bit more socially withdrawn, right? She's a bit more shy. And this little one is, where she is? She's not married. The other one is married. She's a single girl, and she has taken on the cause of domestic violence, the sex trade, the rape culture, and she has developed her own school curriculum. And she says, no point talking to adults. You've already formed your, you're not going to change them. So she said, you have to start at school. So she goes into schools in India. That's where she spends 8 months in India, going into schools and teaching them about respecting each other. And she's, as I said, she's passionate, very passionate. What I'm trying to say is, we are different completely. Here are twins, same parents, same schools, completely different. Now, just because one person may show more emotion in grief, doesn't mean that person has got a less faith or is weaker. Are you with me? Because we are all different. That's right. Remember that. And, sorry. All right. So how do we cope with grief? That's what we are going to talk about a bit more. Coping with grief. Even subtle losses in life can trigger grief. Whatever your loss, it is personal to you. So somebody who might lose a job, for one person might be a main thing, but for another person it might not be such a big challenge. Are you with me? So it is personal. And don't feel ashamed about your feelings. Don't feel ashamed that I am feeling this way, right? Whatever the cause, because there are healthy ways to cope, to ease your pain and sadness, ways to help with coming to terms with what you're going through. We can then find new, this is the important thing, when we go through grief, that we can find through that process new ways of moving on with life. And not only that, but what we have gone through, we can also help others. This is what we as a faith community, we need to remember. Hopefully we become more resilient as a result of what's happened to us, and hopefully more empathetic with others. Are you with me? Yeah? I'm a doctor, and I've seen people, all kinds of suffering over the years, over many. But I will tell you, I've become more empathetic after my retirement from public service in 2020, and in 2021, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. Okay? And following that experience, I've become more empathetic through what I've gone through. I went through a period of grief. Not that I was going to die, but the fact that I am always a very active person, but with all the treatments I had, it had so much of side effects, I could not do the things that I wanted to do. I went through that period of grief. Oh God, what is happening? And because of that, I have become more empathetic because of what has happened, through what the suffering people are going through. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah? So grief can The process of grief can become very painful, but it can be positive if we learn from what's going through. So what are some of the Christian perspective when we talk about grief that we need to remember? We are all Christians here. Faith plays a major role in grief, but not in the way very often that people think. The popular idea that we have is a person with a strong faith does not grieve and should be above these feelings and emotions. Have you come across people like that, who think like that? You're a Christian, why? And even when you lose someone, you say, why are you grieving? He or she is in heaven. Rejoice. Have you heard this statement? Yeah. I often say, it is such a silly thing to say. If somebody cuts your arm up and the blood is pouring, will you look at them and say, hey, rejoice? The blood is pouring, I don't feel pain, I'm rejoicing. A relationship that's been cut is like that. After many years, a relationship of 50 years, husband, wife, father, mother has gone. Do we not feel the pain? We do. We do. Okay? It is silly for us to say that as a Christian we should not. It's totally unrealistic and ridiculous. Christians should know the difference between Stoicism and Christianity. It is Stoicism, which is a Greek-Roman philosophy, that said you should be above all your emotions. Right? That's Stoicism, not Christianity. Christianity has never said you should be above all that. Right? Let's remember that. Scriptures, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, see grief as normal and potentially creative. The shortest verse in the Bible is what? Jesus wept. We all know that, the shortest verse. Jesus wept. Son of God wept. And Paul writes, what does he say? We often say, Paul says, grieve, not those, and this is the verse that is usually used for Christians. Grieve, not as those who have no hope. So what you're saying is, don't grieve. But there's a call, remember, it makes more sense if you put a comma there. Grieve, but not as those who do not have hope. Right? It's not that you shouldn't grieve, but grieve. But as Christians, we can grieve with the hope that we are going to meet this person. See the difference? Yeah? Put a comma there and makes much more difference in that verse. We are humans. We are not supernatural beings. We are human beings. And God has made us with emotions. God has made us with emotions, with feelings. God has not made us as, supernatural beings. We are human beings. Remember that. So grief in the Bible showcases various instances of grief among its characters, teaching us that mourning is natural and integral to human experience. The key figures like Job, remember Job? All that he went through, I can't imagine what he went through. Can you? Losing not only all his material possessions, all his children, and then his own health. He was a man, and did he keep quiet? No. He expressed it all in the book of Job. And God is not expecting us to keep quiet, express it. And remember in Job what happened? The 3 friends or 4 friends who came to see him? 4. And what did they do? The first 4 chapters, they did what we should be doing with people who are grieving. They came, sat with him, put soot over their head, tore their clothes, sat quietly, didn't say a word. And then, unfortunately, after the 4th chapter, they did the wrong thing. They began to start saying, it must be because of your sin, because you should have done that, because you didn't do this right. And then, what did God do? He condemned the 4 friends. You are not right in what they are doing. So, when we are going to help other people, this is a thing that I have mentioned before. It's something that I found very useful. We are, as Christians, and when we want to help others, we are not solution providers, but fellow travelers. You are not psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors, but as human beings, as Christians, we are fellow travelers. And what many people want are not solution providers, but fellow travelers. Those who can travel with you in your pain and grief. And I think I've mentioned this before. Because of all the positions I've had over the years, my brain works when somebody comes to me, tells me something, immediately my brain is working. How can I solve that person's problem? That's the way my brain works. To the point that my children, especially this daughter of mine, I said, the passionate one, she said, Dad, I don't want you to solve my problem, I just want you to listen to me. I find it very difficult. Yeah? I'm not a solution provider, but a fellow traveler. Can you take that on board? Today, as we sit here, if there's nothing else to remember, but remember that saying, I'm not a solution provider, but a fellow traveler. We're going to help other people who are going through problems and grief. Jesus' act of weeping for Lazarus shows that our sorrow is shared by him. And early churches' communal mourning, people had communal mourning, highlights the importance of the community like this. Scripture is filled with verses reminding us that God is near to the broken-hearted. Yeah? David, the Psalms, how many Psalms are there? 150. And nearly half of them, 65 Psalms, are what are called Psalms of Lament. Psalms of Lament. People expressing what they're going through to the Lord. Psalms of Lament. Nearly half of the Psalms. And a lot of them written by David. Bible's narratives and verses encourage us to embrace hope and trust in God. Bible showcases the transformative power of faith and hope in the healing process from grief. So what are some of the causes of grief? As I said, grief is not really when you lose somebody. Here are a few. Yes, certainly the death of a loved one is the main cause, but any loss can cause grief. Divorce or relationship breakup, can that cause grief? Yeah. Loss of health, like I mentioned, but my own personal loss of health. Loss of a job, can that cause grief? Yes. Somebody who's been working for the made redundant, can it cause grief? Yes, absolutely. Loss of financial stability can be a cause for many, and people then commit suicide. You've heard. Miscarriage, which is very often underrated as a source of grief. Women who miscarry and the grief that they go through after having the child for months or whatever, it is often a great cause of grief in many mothers. Retirement, can that be a cause of grief? Yes. I often talk about what's called the scrap heap phenomenon. Here I am, working all my life, and then suddenly retire. Especially if you're not prepared for it in a healthy way, then many old people feel that they have now been thrown on the scrap heap. They're no use to society, no use, they're not productive anymore. And that can be a cause of grief and depression in older people. You know what's the most common? I've spoke to you previously. What's the most common mental illness in old age? Depression. Depression is the most common mental illness in old people. And loss of a pet. Can that be a cause of grief? Yes. Especially in Western society, right? It's becoming more so. I hear in places like Japan and China, people are having lots of pets now, dogs. So here's a old man, let's say, his wife has died, he's got a dog. The dog becomes that person's life, right? Everything is done with the dog, that dog becomes so important. And the dog dies, it could trigger a big grief reaction, loss of a pet. loss of a cherished dream, serious illness in a loved one, not only in yourself, but in a loved one, loss of a friendship, loss of safety after a trauma, loss of a family home. Many people can be a cause of grief. Okay, so here are some myths and facts regarding grief. People have the myth, that, and I'm just sharing some of it. One myth: pain will go away if you ignore it. Will pain go away if you ignore it? Ignoring makes it worse in the long run. It is important to face and deal with it. Yeah? So as if you hear of Christians telling you, oh, ignore it. You're Christian, go over it. That is wrong advice. Secondly, be strong. You're a Christian, you've got faith. Be strong in the face of loss. Grieving is a normal reaction. Showing true feelings helps others and you. When you see somebody else, Pastor Jeremy, who's a pastor of the church, showing emotion, it says, oh yeah, he is a pastor, but he is human like me. Yeah, it helps. If you do not cry, you are not grieving. Have you heard this? Some people don't cry. Crying is not the only way to grieve. Remember that. Grieving lasts, this is another one. Grieving lasts about 6 to 12 months. At one time we used to say the grief reaction would last 6 months. If it is longer than that, it might be pathological grief. But now we've gone out of that. Okay? Because there is no specific time frame for grief. And moving on means forgetting the loss. No. Accepting is not the same as forgetting. Just because somebody has come to terms with it and then moves on and probably even gets married again doesn't mean that they've forgotten that person. Yeah? And don't let's condemn them and look down on them because that's happened. So, there are a few stages of grief. In 1969, a psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross introduced the 5 stages of grief. Very often when you read about grief, you can read about that. But it's not a rigid framework. Remember that. And not everyone goes through it exactly the way that's described here. It is just a framework. So the first is often they say when you're going through grief, the first thing that happens is you feel a denial. So when you hear somebody that somebody has died, let's say your husband, wife, mother, father, you say, oh no, it's not. No, it's not can be real. How can that person so healthy? How could you deny it? You try to deny it. And then when you go past through that, then you go through a phase of anger. Why has this happened? I've been such a good Christian. Why has this happened to me, to my wife, husband, mother, father? It should not have happened to me. And then feeling angry to God. Why did you let this happen to them? So, and who is the person who is to blame for that? That's the stage of anger. Following that, there's bargaining. Then maybe saying to God, please take this away from me. I'll be a better Christian, etc., etc. And in turn, I will do this. A stage of bargaining. And then, after they begin to accept that this has really happened, many then go through a period of depression, feeling sad and depressed. And then finally comes to a stage of acceptance, accepting that this has happened, it's a reality, and to accept that. So these are the 5 stages, but as I said, this is not a typical response to loss, as there is no typical loss. Remember, we are all different, but this is one of the stages of grief that has often been mentioned, and we learn about it. So, what are some of the emotional symptoms of grief? Shock and disbelief, hard to accept, numbness, denial, sadness, profound sadness, emptiness, despair, yearning, tearfulness, loneliness, guilt, feeling guilty you did or did not do, feel that you could have prevented or done more. All these were mentioned by different people when I asked. Fear, host of worries and fears, anxiety, helplessness, panic attacks, fears about the future. And then anger, feeling angry and resentful, yourself, God, doctors who didn't do enough, or even the person who died. Why did you leave me? And because there's a need to blame. So these are some of the emotional symptoms that you'll find in people who are going through grief. But grief also can cause physical symptoms, remember that. For example, it can cause fatigue. Many people are going through grief, can go through periods when they feel so tired very easily and fatigued at the end of the day. Nausea. Others complain of feeling nauseous when they eat. They can't eat properly because they feel nauseous and want to vomit. Lowered immunity as a result of this stress of grief. There can be lowered immunity causing people to become having more infections, chest infections, urinary tract infections, whatever. Lowered immunity. Weight loss or weight gain, both can happen. Some people lose their appetite, don't eat much because they don't feel hungry. They're going through that phase of feeling maybe a bit depressed, lose of appetite. But others, weight gain. Why? Why is that? Because they eat to try and fill their emptiness.
Yes.
And then they put on weight. And then aches and pains, people complain about. Insomnia, very common. People finding it difficult to sleep. Yeah? Sleep disturbance, all kinds. Difficulty getting to sleep. Waking up several times during the night. Dreams of the dead person, all kinds of. So physical symptoms of grief. So then we come to now coping with grief. Now, I don't know whether you remember when I came to talk to you about coping with stress. If you remember, it's good to see your memory or how much you remember of what I said. No, my.
Getting old.
Getting old. That's an excuse. Right, but why I wanted to say is the first step, whether it's coping with stress, coping with grief, what do you think the first step is? This is very important. I always say, unless you come to that stage, you cannot go through the other steps. What is the first step? Anyone?
Acceptance.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. That is key. Without that, everything else is a waste of time. So what is that? Acknowledge your pain. As Christians, whether it be stress or other things, we try to suppress it. No. Acknowledge. Unless you acknowledge, we can't move forward. Acknowledge your pain. You can suppress your grief, but you can't avoid it forever. It'll come out in all kinds of different ways. It comes out in emotional problems. It comes out in physical problems. Because, remember, emotion is an energy. You can suppress it to your unconscious mind, try and suppress it. It still has to come out in some way. It'll come out. Okay? So, acknowledge. To be able to heal, you have to acknowledge your pain. You can't go further until you acknowledge, I'm feeling the pain, I have difficulties. And trying to avoid the pain and sadness only prolongs the grieving process and goes into what's called abnormal grief reaction. Unresolved grief can lead to, that's what happens. If you don't resolve it properly, it can lead to anxiety, depression, addictions in many people, physical health problems, and relationship problems. Are you with me? The importance of acknowledging and accepting. If not, as I said, it is energy which will come out some way, and it can then come out in diseases, all kinds of diseases. Secondly, accept that grief may trigger all kinds of different and unexpected emotions. Be prepared for grief triggers. What are they? Anniversaries of a person's birthday, wedding anniversaries, other things might be a time when it triggers more grief. Remember that, yeah? understand that your grieving process is unique. Don't compare yourself with the other person and say, oh, I didn't go through that, I didn't feel that. No, your grief is unique to you. Are you with me? This is important. Remember that. Don't compare with another person. Don't let anyone tell you how you feel. Oh, you lost someone, you should be feeling that way. Don't let anyone tell you the way you should feel. And don't tell anyone. Don't tell yourself how to feel either. Your grief is your own. Your own personal feeling. Feel whatever you feel without embarrassment or guilt. Accept it. Feel the way you feel. Don't say, because I'm a Christian, I've got strong faith, I'm reading the Bible, I'm praying, I should not feel like that. Accept it. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, express your feelings as in a tangible or creative way. For example, journaling, many people find it. Writing, like Daisy does. Write a lot, right? Writing. Having a diary, journal. Art, some people find it a good way of expressing. Spending time with hobbies or interests like this, gardening and nature, are different ways of expressing the way you're feeling. One day at a time. Look after your physical health. Good physical health helps in coping emotionally. Sleep, rest, diet, and exercise, like what we did. And avoid things like alcohol and drugs, trying to cope with it, because it makes things worse. So look after your physical health. Very often, people are going through grief, because of what they're going, they neglect their physical health. Good diet is because you neglect that. Or sleep, they neglect it. Exercise, they neglect it because they're going through the grieving process. Take one day at a time. It is tempting to look at the future and wonder, how am I going to cope now without my partner? How am I going to cope in 2 years' time? How am I going to cope with my son's wedding or marriage coming up? Take what? One day at a time. Get over it, and then God will help you the next day. Matthew 6:34, 2 Corinthians 12, all these tell us about that. Focus on our present responsibilities. What is it that I have got to do today? God has things for us to do instead of putting life on hold. For example, as I said about when I went through this, the side effects were terrible and couldn't do anything. But I couldn't go for meetings like this to church and talk, but I could sit down and write. And it was during that time I wrote about the booklet that I've got a few copies, Coping with Stress and Grief. And and by the way, I've just finished writing my third booklet. When I come next time, I'll bring it. And that is about Christian perspective on older person's mental health and dementia. Yeah, older person's mental health and dementia. I'm just going to get it printed. Where do I get it printed? I've told you that before. All my booklets?
Malaysia?
India.
India.
It's so cheap, right? Because I don't sell my booklets. I get it printed and then I bring it and give it away. So I'll be getting it printed when I go to India at the end of the year. Then, number 8, seek support of friends and loved ones, like this, group. This is very important. It is natural when in pain to want to withdraw and retreat, but having support from other people is vital to heal. Very important. Even if it is not normal for you, expressing is important in grief. We may not express feelings all the time, but important not to isolate. People want to help, but not sure often how they can help. Tell them what you need. A listening ear maybe, a shoulder to cry on, someone just to be there. What is that? Fellow traveler. Remember? Not a solution provider, but a fellow traveler. People may feel awkward in trying to help and not know what to do. May say or do the wrong thing, but do not use this as an excuse. Oh, he doesn't understand. He's saying funny things. But don't use that excuse to exclude yourself. Keep yourself. Number 9, seek professional help if grief feels too much, so it comes to the point sometimes grief becomes abnormal grief, we call it. And then depression and anxiety and all this setting up. Seek professional help. Grief counselor, psychologist, pastor, all these people are there. Face-to-face counseling is not available, consider online therapy. Social media can be a double-edged sword. Be careful on going on to ChatGPT and social media and saying what should I do when I grieve? So it can be a double-edged sword. They recognize the difference between grief and depressive illness. Number 10, give yourself time. There's no rule book, no time frame, no judgment. Grief is as individual as a fingerprint. Do what is right for your soul. Process it is part of life. As much as we would love to avoid pain, it is not realistic. All healing takes time, physical or emotional. Our Father is not in a rush, and there is no timeline. Be patient and kind to yourself. Remember that. Okay, here are some, we talked about grief, typical grief, but there are some atypical griefs that people can go through. What are they? Anticipatory grief. What is that? Develops before a significant loss. So here is a person, your husband or wife, who may be going through, let's say, cancer or heart attack, and you begin to already start grieving, yeah? Before a significant loss. Loved one in terminal illness, retirement or a job, already beginning to grieve about the possible retirement that I'm going to have in 6 months' time. That is anticipatory grief, okay? Chronic grief, what is that? Grief does not get any better. It goes on and on and on, stuck in a state of bereavement. And then there's undervalued grief, like what I mentioned about miscarriage. Close friend or colleague, you think, well, people say, why are you feeling so much? So it's undervalued grief. Okay, now, I'm coming to the end. Things not to say to someone in grief. So if you're going to help and walk alongside, what do they say? Fellow? Here are a few things that we should not say as a fellow traveler. What are they? You'll get through it, be strong. Have you heard people saying that? You'll get through it, man. Right? Be strong. No, don't say that. He is in a better place. Why are you grieving? Your husband or wife is in a better place now. Rejoice. Wrong thing to say. It's been a while. Aren't you over her yet? Why are you still going on? Don't say that as a fellow traveler. He had a long and fruitful life. Don't say that. God must have wanted it at home. Have you heard a Christian saying that? Don't say that as a fellow traveler. I know exactly how you feel. Do you?
No.
Every person is different. You do not know exactly how the person is feeling. I guess it was time for him to go. A friend of mine, also a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist, Christian, when I mentioned about my mother, I'm going because my mother had a stroke, and he wrote to me, oh, sorry to hear, maybe it's time for her to go. She's 96. Is that the right thing to say? No. Everything happens for a reason. We know that, but we don't say that to someone who is grieving. Yeah? So, what are some of the things we can say to someone in grief? I can't imagine what you're going through. And look at that. I am so sorry for your loss. I don't know what to say. I wish I had the right words to comfort. You and your loved ones will be in my thoughts and prayers. Whenever you want to talk, just know that I am here. She was so wonderful. She'll be missed by so many people. If you can't think of anything to say, a hug may be appropriate. Sometimes just be with a person, you don't have to say anything. See, like, picture that. The less we say, the more God can say. The less we say, the more God can say. Fellow traveler, but not a. Oh, we forgot that. Not a solution. Fellow traveler, but not a solution provider. So, in conclusion, death is an ending, yes, but it is not the. It's an ending, but it's not the end. Spring always comes after. Let's remember. And look at this picture. Butterflies won't fly when it rains, as the raindrops will damage their wings. They rest and wait it out. It's self-preservation. It's okay to rest during the storms in your life. Take all the time you need. You will fly again once the storm, just like the butterfly. Okay, so God bless you all. Please visit our website. You'll see all it. By the way, just last month we had 2 webinars by 2 people from UK called about spiritual abuse. Okay, so we have different workshops, different webinars, seminars. Look at that. And my email address is there. That's the CTP email. I've got my personal. And before we finish, a few minutes, any questions, comments? Anything? Criticize me, whatever. Oh, I've got a few copies of the booklet. If anybody wants, you can have that after this. Yes?
I was speaking to someone who
Yeah.
lost their partner,
Yeah.
and she went through counseling, which was only like in the 40s. And the counseling really helped her. She said if without the counseling, she would have gone through what she had gone through.
Yeah.
Then one of the things she told me is the counselor sort of advised one of the